When you want to do something, when you see a goal that you can accomplish, that you have a dream that you want to reach, people are going to tell you, no, you can't do it. You're too young. You've never done it before. You don't have the experience. Someone else is going to do it first. Someone else has already done it, whatever. People are going to tell you you can't. What happens when you ignore them completely and you dive in head first? We're going to talk to someone who knows that firsthand, former state representative for the great state of Ohio, Jay Goyal. Next.
This is A Dash of Grit. Recipes for success from courageous leaders who overcome challenges and build great things. Now, podcasting from Spire to leaders in local communities like yours, here is Brian Leflock.
And let's get cooking. The neatest thing about this show that I like is that when people listen, I hope that they're encouraged to do something that they either thought they couldn't do or were told they couldn't do. If you've ever had an idea, if you've ever had a dream and you wanted to do it, but someone said, no, you're too this, and no, you're too that, and no, it's your, you can't do it, you don't have enough experience, just quit. When that happens, I want you to remember this story. I'm excited to introduce you to Jay Goyal. Jay Goyal is not only the president of Goyal Industries, a metal fabrication company right here in Mansfield, Ohio, a very successful company. He is also a former Ohio State representative, serving for 3 terms from 2006 to 2013. Look it up. He made an impact, he made a dent, and he made a difference. And I'm excited for you to hear his story. Jay Goyal, welcome to A Dash of Grit.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Happy to be here.
Really do appreciate it. I want to talk a lot about the hurdles that you went through. I want to talk about the election and maybe how it affects your current operation of Goyal Industries. But before that, can you tell me a little bit about success? Because if we're going to talk about the hurdles, let's talk about what you were able to accomplish. It means bragging a little bit, maybe patting yourself on the back. But tell me about some of the good things, either in politics or in your company. Brag a little bit so that we can get into the dirt.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate the question. I would say, in terms of when I was in office, the things that I feel most proud about, I would probably put them in 2 categories. One are the legislative achievements, legislative accomplishments. So was able to, really do some things around economic development, specifically technology-based economic development. I was the co-sponsor for the renewal of the Third Frontier program, which was a $700 million program aimed at entrepreneurship and innovation, encouraging and stimulating entrepreneurship and innovation in the state of Ohio. Was heavily involved with the state budget and helping to make sure that we had a balanced budget at the state level. I also was, passed sponsor legislation and then was able to pass legislation allowing public universities and colleges to take equity in startups with the goal of, again, just trying to stimulate more innovation and entrepreneurship in the state of Ohio. And, there's other, legislative accomplishments that I feel good about, but those are kind of, some of the ones that come top of mind. And then, kind of the other bucket just deals with being able to help constituents. In our office, we would many times get calls from constituents asking us to help them with XYZ issue. Many times we weren't able to help them, but in many cases we were able to help people. And, that was really one of the most satisfying and great gratifying things that I was able to do while in office.
And a lot of those accomplishments that you mentioned around business, those were a lot tied into business growth. Were those things that you wanted to achieve? Is that part of the reason you wanted to run? Or were those things that you were able to figure out when you got there that you'd be able to impact and make a difference?
That's one of the reasons why I did get into it is, I came from a business background, had grown up around my family's business, was working at my family's business as an engineer. So, it was definitely, that was part of what I talked about when I first ran for office. And it was definitely a major focus of mine once I was in office.
So you had a dream, you decided you wanted to get it done, you saw that you were able to get it done, and you found the channels and you made a difference for other people. And that sounds like a Cinderella story. If you're watching on TV, you're a young man. If you're listening on audio, he sounds like a young man, and you're right, he is. Jay, I bet there were some hurdles along the way. It probably wasn't an easy Cinderella story, and I'd sure love to hear that and share that. Stories about grit. So can you talk about some of the hurdles you had to overcome to get there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, the most significant one was just getting elected, just initially getting elected. This is back in 2006. And, I had moved back to the community in 2003 after I graduated from college, was working at the family business. And, I volunteered on some campaigns and, had met a lot of people. And they said, we think you'd make a good candidate for office. You should think about running. And so, I thought about it. It was something that I'd always been interested in. When I was in high school, I was voted most likely to be a politician.
Okay.
So, maybe my high school classmates had some foresight when they were deciding that or making their votes or whatever. But beyond that, one of the things that I really noticed when I came back to Mansfield after college was that a lot of my friends who I'd grown up with, gone to school with, had moved and left the area. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'd only gone as far as Cleveland or Columbus, but in many cases they had left the state entirely. And I saw that as a symptom of some deeper problems that, we had in the community. And so wanted to try to get involved and do something about it. So, decided to run for the state legislature. When I first got into the race, a lot of people were, rightfully so, a little skeptical. I was young. If I got elected, I was going to be the youngest member of the General Assembly. I was 25 years old on election
day. You were 25 when you ran and when you were elected?
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I had never held office before, let alone run for office before. Yeah. And so, many people were like, maybe you should just run for something local, run for city council or school board or
get
something.
Get your name out there a little bit.
Get your name out there, build some name ID, learn how the game is played before, just running for the state legislature. In terms of party affiliation, I'm a Democrat. Richland County tends to be pretty Republican. In, the prior election in 2004, I think George W. Bush got close to 60% of the vote. And so, people said, that could, potentially be a hurdle for you. And then, some people, mentioned that, and I don't think they meant anything by it themselves when they said it, but, they said, you're an ethnic minority, you're Indian American, it might be harder to get elected, for that reason as well. And then, you kind of take all these things and put them together. And, there was certainly some people who didn't think that I'd be able to win.
Yeah. And so politics, from what I understand, though, is a machine. And so we shouldn't just assume that it was easy for you to say, nah, I got this. I mean, you've got to have the backing of the right people, I think, unless you tell me this is differently. I'm wondering, why didn't you take their advice? I feel like there's something about you that might be a little different there, because they said, you're young, go be a this for a little while and then do that. But you said, no, I want to do this now. What is it about you that made that decision? And why did you decide to go that course?
I guess that's a great question. And I think what really pushed me to do it was I was just really excited about the work you get to do when you're in public office, when you're a legislator. I mean, you get to look at, all sorts of larger societal problems that we have and then try to come up with solutions for those. And, that's something that, even to this day, I get excited thinking about, but particularly back then, I'm an engineer, right? So we solve problems as engineers, and, every day, even, right now we're solving problems in terms of how we make this or, how we set up this process or whatever, but being able to do it on a larger scale where you're able to impact millions of people's lives, hopefully for the better, and solve problems for them, it's really exciting. And to feel like you have the opportunity to do that, particularly at an early point in your career, it just felt like too good of an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah, and so I want to take that answer and dig just a little bit deeper, because it's so important to you and you have such a passion to get it done, and you can see that opportunity to serve and to make a difference. Yet, I think this is accurate. In the world of politics, you can't have a lot of losses like a heavyweight fighter. You can't go into your career 0-3 and hope to overcome that. Had you lost, and I'm sure people were telling you this, they might not have given you a second chance. There would have been the next kid coming up, right? And so did that enter into your mind that if I lose this, I'm going to lose my whole shot at this opportunity?
Yeah, it did. And it's funny that you mentioned that because the state party chair at the time, basically told me, if I ran, I had a primary, I had a competitive primary. There were many people who thought that my primary opponent would have been a better candidate for the fall election.
Yeah.
Obviously, I ended up winning the primary. And, there were people who were trying to get me out of the race for that reason. And I remember after the primary, when I won, I ran into the state party chair at the event, and he just, takes his finger and he just like points it right at me. And he's like, "You better win, buddy."
Yeah.
Because, I wasn't necessarily maybe the first choice candidate in that respect. And, there I was as the candidate. So if I was going to blow the opportunity, then, I better win, if you will.
Yeah. And so did that change your mindset at all? How did that make you feel? You're in, you're going, you won your primary. There's no turning back. But did that finger in your face change you at all? Did it inspire you, or did it limit you a little bit? How did that happen?
Oh, I mean, it totally was a source of motivation.
Yeah.
Right. Not only, I had enough intrinsic motivation to do it for all the reasons, but, wanting to prove that person wrong.
Yeah.
And, just it added a little bit of extra, I guess, to, push yourself a little bit more.
And so what did you have to do? Talk to me about the real hurdles. So those were the perceived hurdles. Tell me a little bit about how hard it actually was, either to get elected or to make a difference when you got there, being a freshman at 25 years old. I assume people didn't give you the same credence as they gave others. So tell me about that experience.
Sure. I'll talk about both. First, in terms of getting elected, the biggest part of my campaign was knocking on doors. So over the course of my campaign, I knocked on, I think it was like 13,000 doors. And I pretty much knocked on doors every single day for an entire year. So after the elections ended in November of 2005, maybe a few weeks after the elections ended in November 2005, I started knocking on doors, and just every day just went out knocking on doors until election day in November of 2006. So, if it was the winter and it was, 20 degrees out and snowing, I was out knocking on doors. Or if it was, the summer and it was, 90 degrees out and hot and humid, I was out there knocking on doors. And, that's really what allowed me to be successful in my campaign. I met so many people who said, I first heard you were running or saw you and saw that you were so young. I'm a Republican, I wasn't going to vote for you, but you knocked on my door. I like your work ethic. I like what you're talking about, and, I'll vote for you. And it I think was definitely the biggest factor in my success.
I'm interested in, because a lot of our customers are business people trying to generate revenue. And so a lot of them are salespeople. I'm a salesperson. Knocking on a door, making a cold call, like that's not a lot of fun. It works, but we don't like to do it very much. That had to be hard. Did you also knock on Republican doors, or was it only Democratic doors?
Oh, no, definitely. I knocked on Republican doors.
Every door. Well. So tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, you can't win in this district if you're not getting significant crossover vote, if you will. So, it is very similar to cold calling, right? It is. And it is, with the business analogy, your product is yourself. Right. You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to sell yourself to at least one more person than your opponent is able to sell themselves to. And so you do use, some of those same tactics that you would during a marketing campaign or a sales campaign, whether it's you're targeting. As you asked if I knocked on Republican doors. Yes, 100%. But I wasn't just knocking on every single door on the street. I was targeting, right? So, you can get the voter file at the Board of Elections. You can look at people's voter history, who's likely to vote, what is their party preference. And, you can cut the data. Nowadays, you can do it so much more sophisticated than you could back then. But, you would cut the data, you would target it. You do polling. You test your messaging just like you would in any sort of ad campaign that a business would do. And then, you also have to raise money. So, just as when you're running a business and you have to raise capital, either when you're getting started or if you're expanding and you need to raise capital, you need to convince other people that you're worth them investing in. And, some of that is, based on relationships you have, but you got to have a plan, you got to have a pitch, and you got to persuade people, you got to convince people to invest in you.
So I want to get to the challenges that you had on the floor, but I also, before then, I want to know, do you have any advice for a salesperson that is afraid to make a call, is afraid to knock on the door? Because a lot of people are. You don't realize it, but a lot of people just are terrified of picking up that phone and being rejected. Do you have any advice for those folks?
Yeah, I think if you got to believe in what you're selling. When you're selling yourself, it is such a source of motivation because it's very much easier to do, because I very much believed that if I was able to get elected, I would be able to do good things in the community. And so that really helps you get over, the hesitation or, any sort of nervousness that you might have in terms of selling. But so if you believe in your product, if you believe in your service, if you truly believe that this is a good product, this is a good service, people are truly going to benefit from this, then you're only potentially helping those who you're reaching out to. So, hopefully that can just help, give someone a little bit extra motivation to go do what they need to do.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Now you're a 25-year-old rookie/freshman state representative. That's not a small accomplishment. That's not, I'm a 12-year school board member, 14-year school board member. Good for me.
Great.
It ain't what you did. Okay. So tell me about the challenges now as a freshman rookie, bright-eyed, going to change the world. You show up in Columbus, and now what?
I was the youngest person in the legislature when I got elected. So, a lot of people, you look at, the Capitol Square crowd, we'll just call them, right? You're kind of Columbus insiders.
Yeah.
We'll just call them the Cap Square crowd. They thought I got lucky. I worked hard, but, was naive, or, whatever the case, didn't really know how the game worked, or, whatever the case might be. There's no secret sauce or, one thing I feel like that I was able to do to kind of get people to take me seriously. It was really just, it was the same mentality, right? It was just hard work. It was just grinding day in and day out and just working harder than everyone else, or working extremely hard. I don't want to say that I worked harder than everyone else, but I mean, working hard and, trying to be smart. So, I didn't mention this, but I ended up getting elected to be the majority whip in my second term, which is the fourth highest leadership position. So, over the course of one term, was obviously able to build relationships and gain the confidence of my colleagues to where they felt comfortable electing me as the majority whip. It's a lot of, I think what allowed me to be successful in that regard was, people skills, right? Building those relationships one-on-one with people, taking the time to understand and to listen to what they have to say, to what their concerns are, to what's driving them and motivating them. Mm-hmm. And then, building your relationship from there. But a lot of it was just working and just taking a lot of meetings with all sorts of people to talk about legislation, reading legislation, studying the details. And then when you're meeting with someone or when you're in a committee hearing, being able to demonstrate yourself as someone of substance who's done their homework. And, you do that enough times and people really start to take you seriously. You take a meeting with, some group and, they start talking about their issues and they don't think you're paying attention or they don't think you have any background. And then, but you're listening, you're digesting, and then you ask thoughtful questions. They begin to feel more confident that you're able to, comprehend what their issues are and potentially even help them.
And can you share a story? We see all of your accomplishments. I won't list them here. If someone's interested, they can look it up, but it is extensive. You accomplished great things. There must have been something, though, that either you didn't accomplish that you wanted to, or that you were able to accomplish but almost failed. And I'm interested in what either of those taught you, or the level of, maybe more importantly, the level of grit you had to apply, either to come out of that failure unscathed or to actually turn a failure into a success. Can you share a gritty story of accomplishment from your terms?
Yeah, and I apologize, Brian. You cut out there for just a little bit, but I think I got the gist of what you're asking. Talking about one of my accomplishments that maybe was unexpected or could have been a failure, or I suppose you also asked something that was a failure, was something that was
something that you, and I'm sorry I cut out, but something that you tried to get done and either didn't get done and you had to show grit to move past it, or you were able to get done, but for a little while it was a dead issue and you needed to exert some grit to turn it back into something great, something like that to share with us.
Sure. I think maybe a good example would be the passage of our state budget in 2009. So,
during the recession, that must have been a tough.
During the recession, right?
Yep.
So we, have the recession. We have a historic drop off in revenue to the state. I think we're facing something like a $6 billion shortfall compared to compared to the amount of money we had in the previous budget cycle. We're in a recession, so there really isn't an appetite to raise taxes. You're in a recession, so you really only want to try to cut so far because that's when people need services more, is during those times of recession. And you also had a split legislature, meaning the House being controlled by the Democrats, the governor being a Democrat, but the Senate being Republican, with the Republicans in the majority. And then you were on the cusp of the next governor's race happening in 2010, which, by the way, was also going to be a redistricting year, meaning the way the congressional lines and the state legislative lines were drawn. Whoever took control in 2010 was basically going to be able to draw the maps to favor themselves if they chose to. There was a lot at stake, right? So the stakes were high, and so there was certainly a significant amount of pressure to make what you would hope isn't a political process, to make it political and to try to damage one side or the other as much as you can politically, with the hopes of gaining the advantage going into the election. That was just going to be about a year later. So, a lot of stuff going on, and
like the perfect storm. I mean,
the perfect storm. It was not an experience I want to relive. But we passed the budget out of the House. The Senate passed their budget. Revised budget estimates came out that showed a more significant shortfall than what we had even incorporated for. And so basically, we're all sitting there, the House, the Senate, and the governor, trying to figure out what to do. No one wants to move first because any decision that has to be made is going to be extremely unpopular because it's going to involve cuts. It's going to involve heavy cuts.
Yep.
The governor comes out. He comes out with his proposal. So we're in this situation. You're supposed to pass your budget by June 30th. That's when the fiscal year ends for the state. We blow past that deadline. There's no agreement between all of the parties. The governor comes out with a new proposal to make a bunch of cuts. He takes a ton of political heat for it. Just a ton of political heat for proposing these cuts. But, he felt he was the governor, so he was the one who had to eventually make the first move. So we made it and, paid the price for it. But, he did what he thought he needed to do. And, from the Republican side, the governor's taking all the arrows. So from, politically, just the political calculus is, the longer that they can make this go, the longer that this can prolong, the more damage it's going to do to the governor, who's a Democrat, and we're in the majority.
So politics is rearing its ugly head here.
Yeah,
and you're just trying to do the right thing. Okay.
It happens, right? It happens both sides.
Yep.
So you're stuck, right? I guess your question. We're stuck in this situation. We're passing these continuing resolutions to just keep the government running, to prevent the government from shutting down. But continuing resolutions are not an effective way to govern, and they cause their own set of problems in terms of just tying people's hands and limiting ability. And it's not a sustainable situation. And I guess I do want to say that I feel like I was able to personally help break the logjam a little bit because the president of the Senate at the time was Bill Harris. Okay. And Bill Harris represented this area, right. Represented Ashland, is from Ashland.
The Ashland area, and, yes.
A word about Senator Harris, I'm a Democrat. Senator Harris is the president of the Senate. He's a Republican. I'm the youngest member of the House. Senator Harris has been there forever.
He's a legend.
He treated me with so much respect.
He's the greatest man, one of the greatest men ever that I've
ever
met.
I really can't say enough good things about him. He could have just been very dismissive of me. He could have been very arrogant towards me. No. He treated me with so much respect. He treated me as an equal, and we were really able to work together on a lot of things very, very effectively. And I have a lot of respect for him. But I was going to say that he was president of the Senate, so he was in this area. So I feel like I was able to talk to some people in the community here and ask them to reach out to Senator Harris to kind of see what he could do to try to cobble enough votes together to get this through. And talk to some people here who were friends of mine, but also friends of his. Had a conversation with Tom Brennan at the News Journal just about the situation and what needed to happen to get it resolved. Because the newspaper editorial boards, everybody was talking about this, right? Because it was it was a bad situation. They wrote an editorial talking about how it was time for Senator Harris to try to form a compromise. And within a few days of that editorial, for example, coming out, we were able to get a compromise with the Senate. So I'm not sure how much, my efforts played a role in it, but I'd like to think that, was able to play some small role in helping to get the impasse resolved and get our budget passed.
No, I think I really appreciate your sharing that story, because I think a lot of regular folks like me that are sitting and reading the papers, we say, why can't they just get along? We're not asking for anybody to give up. It's just, why can't we figure this out? And you shared a story there of reaching across the other side and positioning both of your benefits and letting go of some of the other stuff and getting it done. So I think that's really important and probably a great lesson for folks out there. Grit doesn't have to just come from your own back pocket. You don't have to get your own tires unstuck. You can ask for some help. And so that's great. Jay, we only got a few more minutes, and I want to ask about the future for Jay Goyal. So you're the president of Goyal Industries. You've shown a lot of grit. You're a young man. What hurdles do you see that you need to overcome, either in your own personal life or, as far as politically or whatever it might be, or for Goyal Industries, that you're going to have to show some grit in the near future to accomplish?
Honestly, the biggest one that's on my mind right now are just some personal ones. I'm married. I've got a 2-year-old at home, and then I've got a 2-month-old as well. And so,
wow, congratulations.
So many people have done it.
Don't blink.
Every day is just a grind.
Don't blink, brother.
I got up at 2:30 this morning, and I haven't gone to sleep since then with the little guy crying. So I feel like I'm just showing a lot of grit to power through and get done what we need to get done at home, raising our boys. Which we love. It's the greatest thing ever. I get filled up so much.
Well, I'm going to point that out for you too, Jay, because too many of us think that success is business revenue generated. How many new clients did I generate? How big is our company growing? And not enough people claim family as their number one goal and their reason for success, or even definition of success. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah. That's probably a type of mind. And then, beyond that, hoping to, grow the business, whether that's through organic growth or whether that's through an acquisition. I'm active in the community with the Chamber of Commerce. And so, we have some exciting things that we're doing there in terms of trying to do some development downtown and otherwise. So I have some other irons in the fire as well, if you will. Yeah. But we'll see exactly what the future holds.
And that will be part 2 of the show. Perhaps a year from now, we can discuss some grit that you've shown on a personal level. So, Jay, thank you for being on the show. Before we wrap up, I'd like to do a quick shout out to our sponsor and our presenter of this show. It's Spire Marketing. It's my company that I work for as a director of sales. And we are a marketing company that helps business owners figure it out. A lot of folks do websites and a lot of folks do search engine optimizations and Facebook, and that's all fine. But if you ask yourself why, then you have to figure out, am I doing it for the right reasons? And so if you have a dream, Jay talked to us a little bit here about a dream. He needed to create a strategy. He needed to implement that strategy. He needed to stay true to it. A lot of businesses are the same way. Those are the things that Spire can help you with. Figure it out, the bridge, build the bridge, and then drive that car across. So that's Spire Advertising and Spire Marketing. If you're interested in what we do, we're at spiread.com. Thank you, Jay, for sharing your story. I know you're a busy man, but the grit that you've shown over time has made a difference in Ohio. It's obviously made a difference in you, and I hope that your story will make a difference in our listeners. So thank you very much for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
I appreciate it, Jay. This is Dash of Grit. We do it once a week. Jay Goyal, the president of J Industries and 3-time state representative for this great state of Ohio. We thank you for your service and all of the great things that you did. If you would like to watch more episodes of Dash of Grit, you can find it where you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, all those places. We're also on YouTube. There's lots of past episodes of More Grit, and so check those out too. I'm Brian Lefelak. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay gritty and win the day.
This is A Dash of Grit. Recipes for success from courageous leaders who overcome challenges and build great things.